You wake up, check your phone, scroll for a few minutes, and somewhere between the messages and the news, you see something about money. Someone talking about investing, someone else talking about freedom, maybe a post about someone your age doing really well. And something subtle happens inside you. Not anger, not jealousy, more like a quiet rejection, a mental shrug. That's not for people like me. They probably got lucky. Must be risky. I don't need all that. You don't consciously think these thoughts. They just appear, automatically, effortlessly, like your mind is protecting you from something uncomfortable. Later that day, you make normal decisions. You spend, you delay, you choose what feels familiar. You tell yourself you're being realistic, responsible, grounded, and nothing changes. This is the situation most people live in, not because they lack ambition, not because they don't want more, but because something inside them quietly filters out ideas, behaviors, and ways of thinking associated with wealth before they even have a chance to be considered. And this part matters. This isn't a flaw unique to you. It's not a sign you're bad with money. It's not proof you're behind or incapable. It's a built-in psychological function that everyone has. It's not laziness. It's not stupidity. It's not even fear in the way we usually imagine fear. It's a mental defense system. And its job is not to make you rich. Its job to keep you psychologically safe. The deeper problem isn't that people don't know how money works. It's that their mind has already decided which financial thoughts are allowed to enter and which must be rejected to preserve identity, belonging, and emotional stability. Most people believe that rich thinking is about intelligence, strategy, or discipline. They assume that if someone doesn't think that way, it's because they haven't learned enough yet. That's a comforting belief, and it's wrong. The truth is more uncomfortable. Many people unconsciously resist rich thinking because it threatens the story they've built about who they are and how the world works. If you've grown up believing money is scarce, unpredictable, or tied to stress, then thinking expansively about it feels unsafe. Not logically unsafe, emotionally unsafe. Your mind doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, does this endanger my sense of self? If the answer is yes, the idea is rejected, instantly. This is why advice doesn't work. This is why motivation fades. This is why even when opportunities appear, they're dismissed as unrealistic, unethical, or not me. And if this sounds abstract, consider a simple example. Imagine two people hear the same idea. Start investing consistently for the long term. One thinks, interesting, I should learn more. The other thinks, that's risky, I don't want to mess things up. Same information, different internal reactions. The difference isn't intelligence, it's what that idea threatens internally. For one person, investing represents growth. For the other, it represents loss of control, possible failure, or shame. The mind reacts accordingly. Most people misunderstand this because they assume the mind is designed to pursue improvement. It's not. The mind is designed to preserve coherence, to maintain an internal world. Anything that threatens that stability triggers resistance. And wealth, real wealth, doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your relationships, your routines, your power dynamics, and your self-image. To the mind, that's not growth. That's danger. So it builds a defense system. This system operates quietly. It uses logic, morality, and practicality as camouflage. It doesn't say, I'm afraid of thinking bigger. It says, that's unrealistic. It doesn't say, this challenges my identity. It says, I'm not greedy. These defenses feel intelligent, reasonable, mature, but they're not neutral. They're protective. At the psychological level, one of the strongest forces shaping financial behavior is identity consistency. Humans are wired to act in ways that keep their self-image intact. If you see yourself as someone who struggles but survives, then abundance creates internal conflict. If you see yourself as humble and grounded, then ambition feels like betrayal. If your social circle bonds over complaining about money, then financial improvement threatens belonging. So the mind steps in and says, let's not go there. It's not that you can't understand rich thinking, it's that your mind has learned to associate it with discomfort, risk, or alienation. Another layer of this defense system is emotional conditioning. Many people have watched others fail, stress, or become consumed by money. Their nervous system learned an association. Money equals pressure. So when an idea about growth, leverage, or expansion appears, the body tightens. The mind interprets that tension as wisdom. See, this feels wrong. But feeling wrong is not the same as being wrong. Your nervous system doesn't care about your potential. It cares about predictability. Familiar struggle feels safer than unfamiliar success. There's also a moral component. For a lot of people, rich thinking has been unconsciously linked to selfishness, exploitation, or emptiness. So rejecting it feels like integrity. This is one of the most powerful defenses because it allows you to feel good about staying where you are. You're not avoiding growth, you're choosing values. Except the values were inherited, not examined. They were formed in environments where money was misunderstood, feared, or weaponized, and now they quietly run your decisions. Another psychological factor is what could be called anticipatory shame. If you imagine stepping into a larger financial identity, your mind immediately simulates judgment from family, from friends, from people who knew you before. The discomfort of that imagined judgment is enough to shut the whole idea down. So instead of confronting that discomfort, the mind dismisses the path entirely. This isn't realistic. I don't need that much. I'm fine as I am. These statements sound confident, but often they're just emotional exit ramps. The most overlooked aspect of this defense system is that it operates below awareness. You don't feel like you're blocking rich thinking. You feel like you're being sensible. That's why change feels so hard. You're not fighting bad habits. You're fighting a psychological immune response. When the body detects a virus, it attacks. When the mind detects an identity threat, it rationalizes. Both are protective. Neither cares about your long-term vision. So what do you do when your own mind is the gatekeeper? The solution is not forcing yourself to think positively. That only triggers stronger resistance. The solution is not copying rich habits. That creates internal conflict without integration. The real shift begins when you stop trying to adopt rich thinking and start understanding what your mind is protecting. Instead of asking, how do I think like rich people, ask, what feels unsafe about thinking differently? That question bypasses ego and goes straight to the defense system. When you notice resistance to an idea, don't argue with it, get curious. What identity is this idea threatening? What belief would I have to let go of if I accepted it? Who might I disappoint if I changed? This reframes resistance as information, not failure. Another unconventional shift is separating money from morality in your mind. Not by becoming careless or greedy, but by noticing how often moral language is used to avoid discomfort. Wealth is a tool. Your values determine how it's used. But if your mind has fused money with judgment, every financial expansion will feel like a character flaw. You can't grow under constant self-surveillance. A powerful mental framework is to view financial growth as an identity expansion, not an identity replacement. You're not becoming someone else, you're adding capacity. That subtle distinction lowers the threat response. Instead of I'm not that kind of person, it becomes I'm learning a new dimension of myself. Another key shift is slowing down exposure to rich thinking instead of binging it. Overexposure triggers defenses. Small, repeated exposure builds familiarity. You don't need to believe new ideas immediately. You just need to tolerate them without rejection. Let them sit. Let the discomfort pass without acting on it. That alone rewires your relationship with possibility. One of the most effective strategies is changing the internal question you ask. Most people ask, "Can I do this?" The defense system answers quickly, "No." Try asking, "What would someone with fewer fears notice here?" This creates psychological distance. It allows exploration without commitment. You're no longer threatening your identity, you're observing alternatives. Over time, this weakens the automatic rejection. And here's something important to understand. This process doesn't mean you're late. It doesn't mean you've missed your chance. Defense systems don't expire. They soften when they're understood. Finally, understand this. Rich thinking is not louder, more aggressive, or confident thinking. It's calmer, less emotional, less reactive. It doesn't rush to conclusions or cling to stories. And it doesn't argue with resistance. It outgrows it. When you realize your mind has been protecting you, not sabotaging you, the relationship changes. You stop fighting yourself. You start negotiating with your psychology instead of overpowering it. And slowly, the defense system relaxes, not because you forced it to, but because it no longer feels under attack. The core idea is simple but uncomfortable. Your financial ceiling is not set by knowledge or effort alone. It's set by what your mind feels safe allowing you to become. When you understand that, money stops being the enemy or the obsession. It becomes a mirror. And with awareness, you finally get to decide what it reflects.